Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Aurora online classes. Dear students, I'll proceed with the same lesson, footprints without feet. Let's go ahead, let's read further. Actually, in my previous class, I taught you that he made an illegal entry, unlawful entry in the Drury Lane and the London store where he uh, stole dresses for himself and he fed himself, and he also in the shop from the shop in a Drury Lane, he attacked some shopkeeper and looted his money, and then took train from there to the village of Iping. Let's read further from there. Eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village Iping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. ILL inn is a rest house where there is a small restaurant and there is also a resting place. You can live there and you can get food from there. This is a resting place, rest house type, inn, ILL inn. So eager to, in Hindi, Sarai, eager to get away from the crowded London, he took a train to the village of Iping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly, but Griffin had no desire to talk and told her, "My reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude." Solitude means alone, akele rehna. "I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. Besides, an accident has affected my face." Now he took a train from London to the village of Iping, and he reached Iping. That was the month of winter. It was still extremely cold, and he had bandages around his face. He was also having goggles, glasses, then whiskers, overcoat, and a hat. And his appearance was his appearance was very strange. So when he came to Iping, he booked 2 rooms in an inn. And who was the owner of this inn? Mrs. Hall was the owner of this inn. His appearance was so strange because of his bandages around his forehead, around his face, because of his dark glasses and a hat and an overcoat. So he booked 2 rooms, and his appearance became the talk of the people. Became the talk of the people. People started talking about his appearance, that he is a very strange man. So he came and he paid money to Mrs. Hall in advance and booked 2 rooms for him. So he got 2 rooms and he started living on rent in that inn. Actually, that was a very strange time. Actually, in London, nobody could come. Hardly anyone comes during the winter to a stay in some inn, because that is not the springtime for any picnic and so on. So, but okay, no problem. This a strange man had come with a strange appearance, and he wanted to live all alone. He doesn't want anyone to disturb him. And he had also explained one reason as to why he is like that. He explained it to Mrs. Hall that actually he had met with an accident, and just because of accident, his face is like that. His face has been distorted. Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric, means very strange, बहुत ही अजीब गरीब टाइप का, सन की पागल टाइप का. Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper, but the stolen money did not last long. Stolen money. He had stolen money from the shopkeeper while coming back from a shop in the Drury Lane. Do not forget it. So, but the stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in their study. Creeping downstairs, they heard the chink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. Without making any noise, with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door and said, "Surrender." This is poker. Then this is a metal rod, poker. To his amazement, he realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There wasn't a sign of anybody, yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. Underline it. What happened then and thereafter that? Actually, Griffin, of course, he was a brilliant scientist. He came to the village of Iping. Iping was a village, and actually he was staying in an inn. Mrs. Hall was the owner of that inn. He paid Mrs. Hall in advance because he had looted money, he had robbed money, he had robbed that shopkeeper. He had robbed money from that shopkeeper, so he had money. This was the looted money which he had looted from the shopkeeper by attacking him. But this money could not last long, and actually he was staying there. Now, though he had and he was staying for some time, he had been staying for some time, then rent was needed, more rent was needed for the next month. Then Griffin told Mrs. Hall was the owner. He told Mrs. Hall that he is expecting his check, and when he gets his check, he would be able to pay her the money. So Mrs. Hall was a good lady, and she thought, okay, no problem, and she made every effort to please her guest. And who was the guest? Griffin was her guest. And Mrs. Hall did not want to disturb her guest, Mr. Griffin. Now he had no money. He had no money. He told a lie to Mrs. Hall that he is waiting for his check to come. Though he had no money. So what will he do right now? Of course, he also committed theft, and now he was going to commit a theft. So that morning, what happened? That this man broke into the clergyman's house. Clergy is a priest of the church. Church ka padri ya pujari, that is called priest. That is called clergyman. So he broke into his house and he robbed his money. He looted his money, housekeeping money, which was put in the drawer, and he was invisible. Nobody could see him. So that morning he went there and he took out the money from his drawer, and when the clergyman and his wife heard the chink of money, both of them woke up and both of them came downstairs. The clergyman came downstairs followed by his wife with a poker. It's a metal rod, because he thought that he would catch the thief and he would hit the thief with that poker. Both of them came downstairs. He said, and he flung the door open and said, "Surrender." But there was nobody. There was no trace of anyone, because he was invisible. He was none other than Griffin. Actually, Griffin went there to rob the money, to steal money from the clergyman's drawer. He needed money for his expenses. So he was there, but he was not seen by anyone. He was not visible by anyone, and both of them could not see him, but they were cursing themselves. They were very sad. All they could say, that extraordinary affair, and their housekeeping money was the money which they had kept for the expenses, house expenses, household expenses. All the housekeeping money was gone. Extraordinary affair, the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. They were cursing themselves. They were very sad because their money was stolen. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. The landlord and his wife were up very early, and they were surprised to see the scientist's door wide open. Usually it was shut and locked, and he was furious if anyone entered his room. The opportunity seemed too good to be missed. They peeped round the door, saw nobody, and decided to investigate. The bedclothes were cold, showing that the scientist must have been up for some time, and a stranger is still. The cloths and bandages that he always wore were lying about the room. On the very morning, on the same day morning, what happened? Both Mrs. One more episode, one more incident took place, and that was one was the burglary at the house of the clergyman. And the same morning, what happened in the Mrs. Hall's house? Actually, on that day, both Mr. Hall and Mrs. Hall, they woke up early, and they found something strange. And what happened, that they were surprised to see that Griffin's room was open. Usually Griffin's room was shut and locked. So they came and they peeped into the room, and they found nothing. They did not find Griffin in the room. Griffin was not in the room. The bandages and his clothes were lying on the Griffin's bed. So they were surprised to see the bandages, the goggles, his clothes on bed. And actually, what happened like that? All of a sudden, so where was Griffin? Griffin was not at that time. Griffin was not in the room. So where was Griffin? Actually, Griffin had gone to commit a theft in the house of the clergyman. So that's why Griffin was not there. And within a second, Griffin reached that, and nobody could see Griffin because Griffin was totally naked. His clothes were there, his bandages were there, and when Griffin would be invisible when he was naked. When Griffin was naked, he would be invisible, and since Griffin was invisible, nobody could see Griffin. It is clear that at that time Griffin was naked, as his clothes and his bandages were lying on the bed. So all of a sudden Griffin appeared, and he was not seen, he was not visible by anyone. All of a sudden Mrs. Hall heard a sniff breathing close to her ear. A moment later, the hat on the bedpost jumped up and dashed itself into her face. Griffin appeared. Griffin came to, Griffin's breathing was very close to Mrs. Hall's ear. Mrs. Hall's ear means Mrs. Hall heard the breathing, heard the sniff of Griffin. So Griffin appeared there, and nobody could see Griffin. And then and there, what happened? And his hat was on the bedpost. Bedpost, this is the wooden support. 1, 2, 3, 4. So his hat was on the bedpost. All of a sudden, so who were there? Mr. Hall, Mrs. Hall were in Griffin's room. Now Griffin had appeared. All of a sudden Griffin appeared there actually, and his hat was on the bedpost. All of a sudden his hat started leaping out. His hat started jumping and started moving in the air, and gave a dash. This hat dashed itself into her face, means into the face of Mrs. Hall. So Mrs. Hall got hurt by what? By the hat. The hat all of a sudden started moving. It started jumping like that, and it gave a dash to Mrs. Hall's face. Then the bedroom chair became alive. Bedroom chair also became alive. the bedroom, there was a chair in the bedroom. The bedroom chair started moving in air. It was something like the activity of the ghost. Then the bedroom chair became alive, springing it into the air, and it charged straight at her. It charged straight at her legs foremost. As she and her husband turned away in terror, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam the lock and the door after them. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits, frequented by spirits, and then the stranger had somehow caused this to enter into her furniture. My poor mother used to sit in that chair. She moaned to think it would rise up against me now. The feeling among the neighbors was that the trouble was caused by witchcraft. But witchcraft or not, when the news of the burglary, matlab stealing, robbery at the clergyman's home became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected of having had a hand in it. Suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash, though he had admitted not longer before that he had no money. Now what happened? That Mrs. Hall's inn, what happened in Mrs. Hall's inn? Now the chair started moving all around, and the legs of the chair hit Mrs. Hall and Mr. Hall, and both Mr. Hall and Mrs. Hall got scared and they started running away from there. Mrs. Hall fell down on the stairs. She fell unconscious, and then after some time she got up from the she became conscious, and she was quite upset, and Mrs. Hall thought that it is the activity of some ghost. The ghosts have started coming, and Griffin is responsible for this. Griffin does something strange, and does something strange which he doesn't let the people know. And not only that, so Mrs. Hall thought that this place is a haunted place. Some ghost has taken over the place, and the ghost has started coming to this place just because of Griffin. And now the neighbors, they were also superstitious. The neighbors thought this is the work of some witchcraft, jadugarni. Some witchcraft has done like this. But actually what happened? Now when they came to know the case of burglary, the case of stealing, or the case of robbery at clergyman's house, they got suspected, they got suspicious, means they become more suspicious, and they thought that they grew suspicious, and they thought that this is Griffin's hand, means Griffin is responsible for the burglary at his house, and Griffin is also responsible for all the activities, whatever activities that happened in Mrs. Hall's house. And now Griffin had money because he had looted clergyman's house. He had looted money from clergyman's house. He had money, and now he was going to give money. So when he was going to give money to Mrs. Hall, the suspicion grew much stronger. The suspicion grew stronger. Just a short time ago, he told that he doesn't have any ready cash. He was waiting for the check. Now where did he get the money from? How did he manage the money? He might have, or he must have stolen money from somewhere. So now they were sure, they had a doubt that the person who had stolen clergyman's money is Griffin, and whatever happened, something strange happened in the house of Mrs. Hall, actually it is Griffin is behind it. So the village constable was secretly sent for. Instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist, who had somehow mysteriously appeared from his empty bedroom. I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs. She demanded, and I want to know how it is you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room. The scientist was always quick-tempered. He was short-tempered. He used to get angry very quickly. Now he became furious. Furious means angry. You don't understand who or what I am? He shouted. Very well, I'll show you. Suddenly he threw off bandages, whiskers, spectacles, and even nose. It took him only a minute to do this. The horrified people in the bar found themselves staring at a headless man. Mr. Jaffers, the constable, now arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. But Jaffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then that person had to be arrested with or without his head. Therefore, there followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. Finally, a shot flew into the air, and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Some people tried to help him, but found themselves hit by blows that seemed to come from nowhere. In the end, Jaffers was knocked unconscious as he made a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. There were nervous, excited cries of hold him. But this was easier said than done. Griffin had shaken himself free, and no one knew where to lay hands on him. Now what happened? Actually, now Mrs. Hall thought that some ghost has haunted this place. It is a haunted place now. She went to Griffin and told him as to what he was doing with the chair. Why was the chair moving? Why was he disturbing the peace of the people? And what was he doing in his room? He asked all these questions. Who are you and for what you have come here? This is what Mrs. Hall asked this Griffin. This Griffin actually he was a very short-tempered man, and he got furious, he got very angry, and then said, now I'll show you what I am. I'll show you. You don't understand who and what I am. Now I'll show you who I am and what I am. I'll show you. And by saying this, what did he do? He started throwing off his bandages. He started removing his bandages. His whiskers, his spectacles, and even his nose. He threw off everything: bandages, nose, whiskers, spectacles. And now this portion was disappeared. This portion was not seen because he had removed everything, and now he was headless. So he was headless, and actually they had already called Jaffers. Jaffers was the constable. The constable came, and then there was a great fight. Between the constable, and this was the magistrate warrant, and Jaffers had also decided to hold him, to arrest him. But as he started throwing off everything, bandages, whiskers, goggles, his fake nose, his clothes, isn't it? He was becoming invisible. So Jaffers was trying to get hold of him. Some people also came to help Jaffers, like Mr. Hall, Mrs. Hall, some neighbors. They came to help Mr. Jaffers, but nobody could catch him, and he started beating the people. Griffin was very angry, and Griffin wanted to save his life, and he had a fight with the people. He had a fight with Jaffers. Jaffers was trying to get hold of him, and he started fighting with the people, and the people could not see him, and all the people were getting the blows. Blows from nowhere, because he was hitting them. Actually, Griffin was hitting the people with his blows, and the people could not see from where he was giving the blows. And so he was knocked down. Jaffers was knocked down unconsciously, and he fell down unconscious, and he freed himself from the people, and he ran away from there to save his life. So, dear students, the people started crying, hold him, pakdo use, but he was now invisible, and thus he saved his life from the people. So we have seen that he was a lawless person. He was always against the law. He was a great scientist. He misused his discovery for what? He misused his discovery for the destruction. He misused it to threaten the people. to trouble the people, to terrorize the people. He did not use his discovery for the welfare, for the well-being of humanity, for the well-being of society. So he was a lawless person. So thank you very much, dear students. This is all for today. Thank you very much. That's all for today.